Yeah, so Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. I just wanted to first get off your preconceived notions of what that's going to look like going forward for you guys, and how do your fans feel about it too, about Texas and OU joining? I think I know about Texas, but I actually do want to know about OU as well because I don't know if there's any history there.
It's kind of funny. Arkansas fans, and I'm not trying to speak for all of them, but I think the majority of them love it. They love the fact that they're joining the conference. And there's a few reasons to why, but one of the biggest things, I'll start with Oklahoma. People may not realize, but Arkansas and Fayetteville, they don't have a whole lot of Power Five programs around them, like at all. And in fact, the closest one in the conference in the SEC might be Missouri, and Columbia, Missouri is about 6 hours away, 5.5, 6 hours away. So nothing close. And it's always felt like Arkansas, when they joined the SEC, they were the most northwest corner of the SEC. So they felt so far away. But Norman, Oklahoma from Fayetteville is only about 3.5 hours away. And it's kind of nice to be able to say, hey, if Arkansas plays in Norman on a football Saturday and the game's at 2:30, Razorback fans can make the drive there in the morning and make the drive back and it not be too crazy. So I think that's an element that's pretty cool. Obviously the program itself, but just having somebody close by to go to games is going to be quite a change. But the Texas angle, like Arkansas fans, I think Texas fans probably know this. Like Arkansas fans, there's a lot of history between the two programs. And if Arkansas fans are kind of like how I was when I was growing up, my dad, you're always about a fan of what your dad is. My dad was a Razorback fan and he hates Texas because that's just how it was. And when that happens, it kind of gets passed down to you. And so there's a lot of Razorback fans that are younger that hate Texas, but they don't know why. But the truth is because it's their parents. It's because of the older generation. And let's be honest. I mean, Texas is the biggest dog in the state, and they're one of the biggest programs, biggest money maker. Like everyone knows exactly what they are. And so it's one of those games that always means, I would say this, it means more to Arkansas than it does to Texas. And that's not an insult. It's just true. I think it means a lot more. Texas is more worried about Oklahoma, more worried about A&M than Arkansas. But to Arkansas, like they want that game every time they play. So I think Razorback fans were all for it because they get to play Texas more. And there's an element to that. I think not only just in football, but in all sports. I mean, baseball, both baseball programs are really good. There's basketball elements to it now. There's just so much that can be done. But, Razorback fans were pissed when A&M and Missouri got at it. I'll be honest. But with Texas and Oklahoma, I think most Razorback fans are like, good. Because if we're going to have great teams in this conference, might as well be teams that either are really closer to us or teams that we have history with. So let's make it happen.
So, John, just to take off on the last thing that you said there, because this has been my observation, both through just being a college football nut, but also having conversations with guys like you, is that obviously Arkansas joins the SEC in 1992, and certainly correct any of my thought process here if it's wrong. But much like when Nebraska joined the Big Ten, and the Big Ten forced this rivalry between Iowa and Nebraska, not that it doesn't make sense, they're neighbors. There is some history from the past. And other forced rivalries across the country. The one that I could never get on board with, not that it was considered a rivalry, but forcing Texas A&M and South Carolina to play every year when you couldn't select two schools in the SEC that had less to do with each other than those two schools. But I understand the whole format, which, again, another topic. I don't agree with how the format had to be upheld from top to bottom. But Arkansas, LSU, they get put together. And again, based on my observation and talking to people, maybe LSU not caring quite as much about that as Arkansas did. But I always thought it was a really cool game, especially when they were both good. We can think back upon a lot of great matchups on Thanksgiving weekend. Playing at the same time every year kind of gave it a little cachet, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Texas A&M and Mizzou join, and they've got to pair somebody with Mizzou. So suddenly the LSU game's gone as a last weekend affair, loses its luster, and Arkansas gets pinned with Missouri. And sure, I get it. There's some regionality there. But to your point, there's regionality when you're sitting somewhere else in the country thinking, yeah, Arkansas, Missouri, yeah, they're in the same region. But as you just pointed out, not really. And that's been kind of a forced rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it because that's something that I think most Razorback fans will always be very upset by. And you know, I think LSU wanted that game to go away from being the last game of the season because, as you mentioned, it was a great rivalry, and a lot of times there were so many occasions that LSU was a better football team, but Arkansas won because they wanted it more. And I think that frustrated LSU. I've talked to my friends down there who cover all things LSU, and they've always mentioned that. They're like, they hate that game because it just seems like if LSU does not play their A game, Arkansas is going to find a way to win. In fact, the past I believe it's the past 4 straight years, or maybe 3 straight years, Arkansas and LSU have played. The game has ended in a 3-point victory for either team. Like, it's that close. So, yeah, there's a lot of history, and Razorback fans were very upset by that because for 2 things. I think when the SEC had A&M and Missouri join, I think that, instead of just making it the easy pick of just saying, all right, well, A&M and Missouri, you guys play each other at the end of the year. Like, that could have been just the easiest thing. But they're like, hold on, let's analyze this. LSU wants out of this Arkansas game. Who knows? They probably called and said, hey, we want to move on from that. And they love A&M because A&M's in Texas. Texas, we need that Texas market, and it needs to be a good matchup. So A&M and LSU, that one makes sense. And then Arkansas, you get Missouri. It's kind of like when you were a kid and there was an odd number of kids in the class, and you got like, you were like maybe late, or you felt like you were going to the bathroom when everyone paired up in groups, and then when you get back, you have nobody, so you just get paired with the teacher. It's like nobody wants that. Nobody wants to deal with that. But that's what Arkansas got. And Missouri, they've beaten Arkansas more often than not in that game. It's mainly, there's a lot of reasons why, but like Arkansas has also struggled in seasons as it is. But it's just, it was a frustrating thing, and it still is. It's still not a rivalry. I don't see it being a rivalry, but as soon as it happened, I think this is what made it really bad for Razorbacks fans. As soon as they got paired, suddenly, boom, they have a trophy. And boom, they have a rivalry name. And then boom, it's a sponsor trophy. It's like, why can't you just let this be organic instead of just trying to force this issue? Like, force this marriage that I don't think anybody really wants. It was just uncomfortable. It was weird. It was awkward. And it sucks. Like, everybody else is having a great rivalry week and playing some big teams, maybe besides Tennessee and Vanderbilt. But then it's like Arkansas and Missouri. I'm like, no one wants to watch that. Nobody does. I don't even think Razorback fans want to. And sometimes I don't even think Missouri fans want to. So, yeah, that sucks. It still sucks. I wish it would change. But unfortunately, I think Arkansas is just paired with Missouri and stuck with Missouri in all programs for the foreseeable future.
I only have one other question. I don't know what else Matthew has, but I'll just take this realignment talk to the national level. Just get your thoughts about what has transpired since we've covered the Oklahoma-Texas situation, going to the SEC, bulking up the SEC to 16, and a ridiculous number of quality programs. Shoot, you could be going forward as the 12th or 13th best team in the SEC in particular years and be a really good football team. But with what's happening in the Big Ten, with the SEC and the Big Ten kind of forming this advisory committee that I could go on and have gone on and on about what it could mean to college football. Just where do you think the game is? How comfortable are you with it? And where would you like to see it land? Or where do you want to see it land versus where do you think it will land?
Well, I'll say this. When Arkansas made the move, I'm sure you remember this, to the SEC, it was a pretty controversial thing. And some people still kind of point to that as the end of the Southwest Conference, or at least the beginning of the end. And Frank Broyles, who was a legendary football coach and legendary athletic director for Arkansas, did a lot of great things, did a lot of not so great things, but there's no question the greatest thing he ever did was get Arkansas in the SEC, because it was controversial. It was a tough decision. You lose a lot of rivalries, but looking at it now, it was great. And so I think, Arkansas fans hate the SEC in a lot of regards, mainly because of the officiating, which, it's kind of how it goes. Arkansas always feels like they get screwed when it comes to scheduling, which is how it goes. But by and large, there's a reason why the SEC has been the most successful place and conference and league for decades, and why it will continue to be, because they are really good at decision-making. I think they're very forward-thinking. And I think, I don't want to speak for Texas and Oklahoma, but them jumping on board, I think, shows, hey, these are two programs, especially Texas, that could probably be independent and do their own thing if they wanted. But they see the amount of money, they see the structure, and they see the revenue stream and everything, and they wanted to be a part of it. So I think as long as the SEC stands firm and continues to do the things that they've been doing and be smart and be forward thinking, I don't see any reason why this doesn't just continue to grow and grow. And my hope is one day, not only getting rid of the entire NCAA as a whole, but being able to have it to where, whether it's just the two major conferences or maybe even forming just one big thing where you have a commissioner, you have a czar or whatever you want to call it, but you have it to where you're not constantly pulling things in different directions. You're all uniform in everything that you do. And I think that, as crazy as it was when Arkansas left and joined the SEC, as crazy as it was when A&M Missouri even joined, the start of all of this came when Texas and Oklahoma jumped, because A&M and Missouri, you could kind of tell, it's like, well, yeah, because A&M's tired of being in the shadow of Texas and Missouri's just Missouri. So yeah, of course they wanted to get into the SEC. But when Texas and Oklahoma, two massive brands, are the ones picking up the phone and calling the SEC, it kind of shows exactly what's going on here and the future of where it's going to go. So I think eventually it'll get to where all these conferences kind of start meshing together. I think you've seen it kind of with the demise of the Pac-12. And who knows? But I'm just glad that Arkansas is in the SEC and they don't have to worry about it, because, man, that'd be a tough look and a tough thing for like these other teams that are looking for homes. Teams like the Washington States of the world and something like that. Like that would be a tough look and a tough thing to do.